our keynote speaker, Mr. Tamsil Hussain, the founder and CEO of People Like Us Create, to come up on stage and give his speech. Thank you very much. Yeah, yeah, sure.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, this is the last panel, so I'm going to stand in the middle of the stage. And I promise you, the next 10 minutes, hold on, the next 10 minutes are going to be very, very useful for each and every one of us, right? I'll tell you what I do very briefly. I run an organization called People Like Us Create, which has about 3 platforms, which powers over 50,000 storytellers across the world. These are storytellers who were farmers. These are storytellers who are women who run businesses. These are journalists. These are filmmakers. These are people in various indigenous communities. These are people who are clubbed into various platforms and they tell stories to monetize. While they tell stories, they create some of the most amazing positive change that we've never seen before, right? These are the 3 platforms we run. We partner with some of the biggest organizations in the world, right from Samsung to like up to UN, to World Bank, to World Economic Forum, to various people. And all of them come to us for one and only one thing, which is credible, fact check, unbiased stories coming straight from the ground. And can anyone tell me the first thing that you think about when you think about stories? Right now, it's in your hand. Anyone? Or can I take it out? Oh, I don't know where my phone is. This, right? Most of the people we know make their stories using a mobile phone. Where they are, what they're doing. They consistently tell stories to actually generate a livelihood. So if you look at the platforms, we have about 500,000 users on our platform. 500 million people this year were reached from the stories people told. But what really happened while they were telling stories? While they were telling stories, I'm only going to focus on climate change right now. Everywhere around them, they were just seeing nothing, that the world is going to end. That's the only statement that they used to get. Right from mainstream media to all the popular accounts on social media, to the print, to papers. Everyone kept talking about how the world's going to end. Have we seen this? Have anyone could just see this or that? Have we seen this? Yes or no? Have you read articles like this? Yeah, I'm actually going to start calling out people myself, okay? Second, but while these articles were being written, there was this movement that was organically building on social media where more and more people wanted to adopt a sustainable lifestyle. More than 4,500 percentage increase during COVID, where people wanted to know how to live a sustainable lifestyle, right? More and more people wanted to know how they can actually combat climate change. Where can they go? And there was no resource that could actually come to them which will actually change their heart and mind. And very few of them were able to do it. So before I move forward, everyone over here has told a story somewhere in their life. Yes or no? Thank you. I got 1 thumbs up. Okay. Can you answer a question for me then? Why do we tell stories? Yeah. Can we get a mic, please? We'll come to you. 1 second.
Hello. Yes. Why do we tell story? I think we tell story to share what's happening in our life, in our area, in our country, so that all people all over the world know about this, and we can collaboratively take actions.
Great. Stories take actions by actually sharing with our friends and family. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Anyone over here? Ma'am, would you like to say, why do we tell stories? You can just take the mic there. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So we tell a story, can we share our memory? Some story that are see in our when we journey, then we see many things. So when we tell stories, we tell them this.
So we share our journeys via stories. Is that okay? Great. That makes sense. So what if I told you, where do you share your stories mostly? I'm just gonna ask it like this. Have you ever clicked a selfie? All of us have. Come on, no, you can't just keep your hand out. Everybody has clicked a selfie, right? Have you ever made a selfie video? No? It's a tough thing, right? It's a tough thing to make that. Have you ever shared an image on social media or the internet? We all have. On WhatsApp. Everyone shares it, right? But what if I tell you these are three new platforms that are completely transforming where communities, people like us, share stories on? And there is a reason why there are not enough stories on such platforms from people like us. Unless anyone's an influencer in the room. Is anyone a big social media influencer here? With more than 100,000 followers? Okay. So social media, obviously, we know TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, various platforms. The biggest thing, everyone's a, everyone has seen something on Netflix or Amazon here or Hotstar, right? But can I tell you this huge transformational shift that's happening in these platforms where they want more and more stories that are mini, right? Which are mini shows, short form content that they want on their platform. And why? Because it's so difficult and so expensive to produce really high quality content that more and more platforms are opting for this. Has anyone seen, I know Food Panda is really big here to order food. Has anyone seen a video on your food delivery apps or Amazon? And that's something that's transforming even more, where your stories can actually be shared on food delivery apps. And the same way goes for how more and more broadcast channels are opening up as well to share these stories. Now, this is where the inequality comes in. There are about 4.2 billion people on the internet, out of which 200 million people like us call ourselves creators. But do we all monetize? Have you ever earned money using social media by telling your story? No, right? Nobody has, but everybody has tried to do it. Can anyone tell me why? Sorry, I can't hear. Did I hear someone say that because we're not cool enough? That's not true.
No, anyone not here.
Okay, great. Sorry, I couldn't see anything.
Might just.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and one of the big reasons is because you are telling stories on social media according to the algorithms, right? If you look in a certain way, of you're creating a video on a certain audio that's trending, it would get you more views. If you have 100,000 followers, 10,000 followers, you get more preference over other people. Over the years, it has built an inequality which is impossible to ignore now because it influences our media, it influences mainstream shows. You would see the same people coming on TV and OTT platforms because they've become so popular, and the algorithms keep increasing the inequality divide. But here's another thing that's building up, where there's a massive demand for climate change creators, which means people who tell stories on climate change. And most of the stories that are told online on climate change do not cover the depth of something, let's say, as complex as conservation, right? Most of the stories talk about very basic issues about we should not use plastic bags, we should not use paper straws. Going forward, I'm going to divide this into three parts, and I'm not going to say much. You're going to meet some of the creators that we've actually worked with across the world, right? And it's divided into three parts: a story, a show, and a storytelling ecosystem. And today we're going to realize if a conservation community can have the world's largest storytelling ecosystem. So let's look at the first story. I met Katu at Glasgow, right, last year at COP26. Now, this is a very funny story, right? Tuvalu, he belongs to an island in the Pacific called Tuvalu, which is sinking. It's one of the first islands which will sink. And everybody is very scared about it, right? They don't know what to do. So Tuvalu said COP26 is happening. There was a plane going from his island to Glasgow. He just snuck into it. I'm not lying. He snuck into the plane, ended up in Glasgow in his attire, which was just a t-shirt and shorts, and he didn't realize how cold it was. While he was in Glasgow, we need to fix the audio. Great. So I'm going to move on just in the interest of time. So last year, it was very difficult to find Tuvalu, right? He was always giving an interview to any mainstream media outlet. And we got one story that he created for us. We went back home. He went back home. I thought that Kato has got the most amazing coverage and it's going to really help Tuvalu, right? This year and Egypt, when we met again, I wasn't expecting that Tuvalu would have a different story. And the story was that no mainstream media outlet covered Kato's story because everything else was important. But this one story that he had done with Let Me Breathe, which is one of our platforms, he goes back, shows that story to his group of friends. It reaches somehow the Prime Minister, it's a very small island. Next year, at COP, the Prime Minister is like, wow, I can't believe you did this at COP 26 Glasgow. Tuvalu had an increase of 600%, where more and more young people ended up at COP27 to actually talk about Tuvalu, talk about the area. And Pacific was a focus where young people were showcasing their culture in a completely different way. Is the audio not working? Should I move on? And Carter said that one story really changed the way he was engaging with a lot of young people. And this year, a lot more people are telling stories. Tuvalu is one of the mainstream narrative when it came to COP27 in the Pacific Pavilion, where a lot of islands had come together. Oh. Should I? Okay. So do you want to, are you going to try and play the video, tech team? Okay. Great. Sorry, guys. Right, you've already heard the story now because the video didn't play. Now let's look at another story that was told by a 16-year-old child in New Delhi who for 45 days was tweeting at Burger King India asking them to go plastic free. Has anyone tried doing that? No one, right? Even I can't think. For 45 days, every day he said, if you're not going to go plastic free, I'm going to come alone and protest in front of Burger King India's New Delhi branch. Do you think that's going to create a change? Might start a movement, but very few people will join because it's just one person protesting. Rarely that would influence anyone. Yes, no. And my reaction after reading his tweets was, what is this kid doing? What is it that he wants? And the next thing you know, we said, okay, why don't you share your story and let me breathe? That went off to so many people who wanted Burger King India to go plastic free. And they, for the first time, discovered that such a thing is possible. On the 45th day, a marketing official from Burger King called Aditya and said, why don't you come to Burger King India? And when you enter any Burger King in India right now, Burger King in India is completely plastic free. And that happened because of that one story that was shared by Aditya. Aditya later on moved on to get Amazon and Flipkart get into eco-friendly plastic free packaging. At the same time, formed an air pollution council, which gets 3 states in India together to fight air pollution, all by telling stories and building his own community. This story is very relevant over here, right? There's this organization called A Forest, which basically helps plant trees in your backyard. They select native trees and they plant a tree. They worked with a religious organization called EcoSikh, which is really, really big in Punjab, India, right? And they only plant forests. What they didn't expect is that their little thing that was happening in Punjab could completely change their lives forever. And this is just a quick clip.
जंगल वृक्षों से भरी एक ऐसी जगह है जिसमें कोई चल के जा भी ना सके। यहाँ पर हम 200 स्क्वायर मीटर में एक ऐसा प्रयोग कर रहे हैं जिसका इस साल नाम दिया गया गुरु नानक सीक्रेट फॉरेस्ट, गुरु नानक पवित्र जंगल, लुधियाना।
Right? What they were mainly doing was that this video, after this video went viral, it went completely viral where more than 5 million people saw this video. Can anyone tell me what happened after people watched their video? Is it fair to say that more people wanted forests in their backyards? More than 1,000 forests in backyard actually were enabled after one video that went viral. Can anyone tell me why this video works over other really expensive, high-produced videos? This was shot on a mobile phone. Okay, I'm going to ask anyone. What about you, sir? With the mask. You, right here? Yes, you. Yep. Can you give the mic to him? Why do you think this video worked?
Well, he shared his story like I guess he's planting the trees in his own community. So trees affect us in many ways, like even our behavior. So in the previous session, they talked about the heat we have been facing. Sorry. So in our city in Dhaka, when I walk a lot outside, so where there are trees, I always feel like calm and like cool because the
And peaceful,
yeah.
right? It's good. It makes the environment nicer.
So I also read an article recently where it says that we also face economic issues due to heat stress. Like we have been like losing lots of billions of dollars due to stress caused by heat. So it affects us directly. So if we go to like older parts of Dhaka, like Ramana or Dhaka University, like the whole area is surrounded by trees. But when I come to like these places like maybe near Bashundhara, like Badda, the whole place, like I don't see a single tree around here. So
I agree with you
yeah.
on that. Yeah.
So when he's planting these trees, he's also encouraging others to do the same, and maybe, I don't know, just raise awareness about it.
Exactly. Now, I would like you to explain this to a 12-year-old who understands this, right? And all of us would understand it in the room, but a 12-year-old would see people actually planting trees and forests and action that it's possible to do this in their own backyard, right? And then there's an opportunity to create a deeper movement after that, right? One video of just people planting trees changed it forever. Now let's look at the second part. About 5 years ago, I was here. This is the largest landfill in New Delhi, right? I was here with 10 waste pickers, Hindustan Times, which is a mainstream media channel, and Instagram, which is a social media platform, and 10 waste pickers which are provided by Chintan, which is a waste picker nonprofit that happens. And all of them agreed to participate in a very crazy experiment that I was doing. My experiment was with if waste pickers started sharing their stories on Instagram every day, people like us would be engaging with waste pickers more to understand our waste patterns and potentially also help them increase livelihood. They were able to make their Instagram profiles. About for the first time, about 100,000 people on Facebook watched live what waste pickers actually wear. We got questions like waste pickers on mobile phones, waste pickers have leather jackets, waste pickers can do this. I had no idea. But when waste pickers started sharing their own stories on Instagram, people started transforming even more. And what became even more crazy was that when they started a campaign to reduce GST tax on e-waste, they had more and more people supporting them because they knew and understood these waste pickers. Instead of an organization telling their story, they were telling their stories on their own. And they were when India launched GST, it was very difficult to even get anything removed. But this was one of the few things that was actually removed, which completely resulted in a complete almost policy shift, right? Now, we implemented a similar thing in Indonesia. This time we got professional filmmakers who worked and visited with a few community members who were living next to
Buat
renewable
anak-anak.
energy plants, right?
Sebelum adanya listrik, susahnya mereka ketika menggunakan lampu pelita, belajarnya memang tidak sejam saja.
Yeah,
Tapi ketika
I think
adanya
it's the, yeah.
power wells, maka mereka lebih banyak waktu untuk belajar, lebih banyak waktu untuk beraktivitas. Sekira itu yang manfaatnya dalam keluarga.
Now, a lot of times it's very difficult to get the right thing from a community that comes out, right? These filmmakers traveled about almost 2 days on a boat to reach this island to shoot the story. But when they were working with the community members, it was very difficult to get the action out of them. So a lot of storytelling trainings are dependent on how good your public speaking becomes and how well you occupy the camera. And we see just that in this story. This is a 3-episode series which features India, Indonesia, and Nigeria, various communities who are living next to renewable energy projects, and their lives have changed. And let's talk about something in the conservation industry, right? In the whole area, where the Indian Forest Services officials actually started their own show called Conservation Conversations, where for the first time, they actually shared
Hi
stories.
everyone, I'm Shweta Buddu. I'm from 2018 batch Indian Forest Service. I'm from Maharashtra cadre. We are tipped off that somebody is planning to cut care trees or teak trees in the village, and then they're going to transport that night. So we know they're going to do, we just don't know when they're going to do. So we lay out the paths, and then we figure out that these nakas or the checkpoints. So somewhere along we'd post our staff, and then they wait and
you can actually watch this show on Plug TV in the interest of time. But what this did was, for the first time, they shared how they work every day using their mobile phones, what it means to work in a forest, and what kind of news that they get every day. This inspired more and more young people to join conservation classes, which can actually allow them to meet more people like this. It attracted more and more young people in India to go to forests and connect with forests in a different system. But all this seems like such an effort, right? So much of an effort of training people to tell stories and them creating change and then earning monetization. How does the storytelling ecosystem work? What I'm going to tell you today is the largest storytelling ecosystem ever made in India on air pollution, right? And it requires a lot of different things. When I started Let Me Breathe, I was living in a city which has so much of air pollution that the only thing I knew was I'm going to die the next day. I could taste air pollution, I could smell air pollution, but I didn't know what was causing it. There were no air quality monitors then, there was no data there. Like me, there were so many people who were constantly sharing stories saying, when is this going to end? And we just started training people who are different ecosystem, belonging to different ecosystem, to share their story, right from mothers to shopkeepers to children to scientists, to all these people started telling their stories together, and this actually traveled a lot. But over the last 2.5 years, we've built an ecosystem where people have built their own communities for one of the most credible air pollution stories. And how that works is very important, right? You would imagine that why would these social media stories end up on any OTT platform? And if I tell you, this is the world's first community storytelling show that's actually on National Geographic. It's called Airpocalypse, where, oh, sorry, you can see the trailer.
You're literally waking up, going through a gas chamber.
Stubble burning takes us from bad air to extremely bad air.
So people are having asthmatic attacks, pneumonias. Public is paying a heavy price.
Airpocalypse, November 14, Sunday 10 p.m.
Every
on
November
National
14th,
Geographic.
this documentary goes viral on the internet, and people subscribe to National Geographic to actually see this. What this brings out is, a lot of times people say that the air pollution is because of stubble burning, air pollution is because of vehicle emissions. It really brings out the truth. Most of the people, 90% of the people featured in this documentary are plug creators who've told their own stories. While they were telling their own stories, the amount of knowledge they got about air pollution and understood the issue, they were able to showcase it in a different way. So you have some of the most senior scientists in India, some of the most amazing nonprofits in India, and some of the most amazing young people who work consistently. Another way to mainstream is when you actually partner with a broadcast channel. In 48 hours, we were able to reach out to 128 million people because we partnered with Star TV. These are just online numbers where Star TV, each and every actor in Star TV was talking about air pollution, right? And they were releasing their stories onto various mediums. But on social media, you had real communities who are actually surviving air pollution every day, sharing their stories. This became one of the most mainstream campaigns, right? And the most amazing thing is when you build a storytelling ecosystem, you don't really need to work on it every day because the community works on it and builds communities organically. Because every time you tell a story that is action oriented, more and more people get inspired to tell their own story. And this really builds an ecosystem that is strong enough, which can involve celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio, to actresses like Dia Mirza, to various people who truly start believing in a community because their story is credible and they can see that change is going to happen. We've tested the same thing with COVID, where we trained doctors, ambulance drivers, frontline workers, all of them were able to save lives. A lot of people were able to save lives by simply telling a video at the right time, making a video at the right time, and breaking myths around COVID. But here's what's amazing. Just about last week, the state of Madhya Pradesh in India launched a storytelling program for tuberculosis, which follows this ecosystem. Can you believe it? A storytelling ecosystem that breaks the stigma around tuberculosis. It works in many ways, but the only way to build a movement that's going to transform us forever, you need to stop thinking that you need to cater to any platform, be it social media, be it OTT. Tell your real story. You need to stop going towards provocative, negative stories. Focus on radical hope and urgency. And the last thing is, every time you have a moment, don't give up on that. That's just the beginning of a movement. And this is how you can build your ecosystem, right? The first story you ever tell is so important. That's literally 90% of the users that Plug TV has. The 10% of the users are the ones who've built successful storytelling campaigns and have a massive influence and can tell great stories. And the last thing which you saw is that big audacious moment. And right now, there are moments that are building up across the world on this. And why can't we start on conservation today? Because it's the easiest to do. There's so many communities who are working on it already. If you want to download Plug TV, this is the thing. But thank you so much. The moderator here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Tamsil Hussain. It was really an inspiring speech from you. And now I would like to call upon Ms. La Twaiching Marma, the co-founder, Community Resource Development Center, to come up on stage. Mr. La Twaiching Marma, a round of applause for him. And we also have Ms. Zenorin Stephen Angkang, the founder and Chief Marketing Officer, Heal Wild Private Limited. Ms. Angkang. We're delighted to have Ms. Afsara Binte Mirza, the lead of Environment and Climate Change Network Youth Policy Forum, who is also the moderator of this session, to come up on stage and take her seat. And lastly, we have Ms. Falguni Tripura, development worker at Kapaying Foundation. Thank you very much. And now I would like to humbly request Ms. Afsar Binti Mirza to moderate this session for all of us. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I am Afsara Mirza. I'm currently leading the Environment and Climate Change Network of Youth Policy Forum, an organization which is aspiring to resonate with the dreams and hope of young people, and where we're trying to bridge the gap between the policymakers and the youth. As we all know that, Bangladesh is vulnerable, but at the same time, other Eastern Himalayan region are also vulnerable due to the impacts of climate change, let it be like intensifying ocean acidification to like drought, sea level rise, and above all, the biodiversity, which is deteriorating. And in the midst of all of this, we know that the social and the economic inequalities are being exacerbated. But in the meantime, the most vulnerable groups, such as the youth, women, the indigenous group, are taking leadership roles in terms of tackling the climate crisis through promoting green businesses, through promoting their solutions, and at the same time, also encouraging other youth to take up leadership roles when it comes to like arranging strikes or raising awareness on different issues. Today, I have a brilliant lineup of panelists, coming from different backgrounds and from different regions apart from Bangladesh. And this session will mainly focus on how youth can play a role in policy reformation, but at the same time, habitat restoration. So now I would like to move on to all the panelists, and all of you can answer these questions. And I would like to ask that, what you're doing in your organization and how is youth community playing a key role in terms of habitat restoration. Thank you. So you can just share a little bit about yourself and what you're doing in your organization, and at the same time, how youth are being mobilized, like, in your community, or what role are they playing?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Zenarin. I run an organization called Hill Wealth, and we are in consumer packaged goods. Why I started with that is it's a long story which I can share a bit later, but I gathered a farming movement in my community because really wanted to highlight the indigenous superfoods that our community have. In fact, a lot of the indigenous communities. So if you can bring out this as a consumer packaged goods in the market, the kind of impact that it creates is much more than the whole farming community where they can just sell the raw materials. That's a snapshot of what I do, and I enjoy it. Thank you.
So my name is Lathoiching Marma. I'm from Bandarban, Thanchi. So I'm one of the co-founders of Community Resource Development Center. Through that organization, we have been trying to do in different aspects of, in different areas, like climate change and environment, then language and culture. So these kinds of different kinds of, in different aspects, we're working together. So we have 10 members in our organization now. We're not still registered, but we're hoping to register the organization. Thank you.
Kulumka, that means namaste in my language. This is Falguni Tripura from Kapeng Foundation, and also I'm working for Bangladesh Indigenous Women's Network as a coordinator. But I would like to start in, I would like to speak in Bangla. So I hope Apsarapa will translate to you. কাপিং ফাউন্ডেশন মূলত বাংলাদেশের আদিবাসীদের জন্য কাজ করে। এটা একটা বেসরকারি সংগঠন, শুধুমাত্র আদিবাসীদের অধিকার নিয়ে কাজ করে। এবং কাপিং ফাউন্ডেশনের যে 3টা নেটওয়ার্ক আছে, নেটওয়ার্কের একটি হচ্ছে বাংলাদেশ আদিবাসী নারী নেটওয়ার্ক। তো সেই নেটওয়ার্কের সমন্বয়কারীর দায়িত্বে আমি আছি। তো আদিবাসীদের যে বাংলাদেশে যে ধরনের মানবাধিকার লঙ্ঘন হয় সেগুলোর জন্য লবি অ্যাডভোকেসির কাজে কাপিং ফাউন্ডেশন নিয়োজিত। আর বাংলাদেশে আদিবাসী নারীরা যে ধরনের মানবাধিকার লঙ্ঘনের শিকার হয় সেটা আপনার ধর্ষণ, দলগত ধর্ষণ, অ্যাটেম্প টু রেপ এবং ট্রাফিকিং এবং আরও যে শারীরিক শ্লীলতাহানি যেগুলো আছে সেগুলো ডকুমেন্ট আমরা করি বাংলাদেশ আদিবাসী নারী নেটওয়ার্ক, এবং এটা হচ্ছে বছরে মানবাধিকার রিপোর্ট আমরা প্রকাশ করি কাপিং ফাউন্ডেশনের সাথে। ধন্যবাদ।
So she said she's Falguni Tripura and she's from Kapang Foundation, and they mainly work on the human rights aspect of indigenous people, but they have a network of women association where they focus mainly on enhancing women's rights, and especially indigenous women's rights. Now, if I move on to the next bit of question, then I would like to ask that, since we're talking about policy reformation, and how we can change the decision-making system in our communities so that we can better protect the nature and tackle climate crisis. So what are few ways you would say in which we can enhance youth's participation in policymaking?
Can you repeat the question?
So like how youth can play a role in policymaking.
How youth can play in policy making. So I think I've participated in different kinds of sessions organized by World Bank and different other organizations. And where we were asked to talk about our region, what's happening in our region regarding climate change and climate change related issues. So I think government and non-government organizations, they need to more ensure participation of the local communities. Without their interest, of making sure that the local community participate in the policy making process, it's not going to happen. So yeah, I think that's all.
Thank you, Apsarapa, giving me scope to speak on policy making. Just I would like to question you that where we are indigenous youth. So আমি সকালে আরেকটা প্রোগ্রামে ছিলাম, তো এখানে আসার পথে আমরা একটা দোকানে বসে চা খেতে ঢুকেছিলাম। তো সেখানে একটা সুন্দর কথা লেখা আছে, বন মোর পিছে যায় মানুষের রোষেতে, নম্রতা পারে যে বনে প্রাণ ফেরাতে। তো এই যে পলিসি মেকিং নিয়ে আমরা কথা বলছি, পলিসি মেকিংয়ের জায়গায় আমাদের আদিবাসী যুব সম্প্রদায় কোথায় আছে? আমি প্রশ্ন তুলতে চাই যে পলিসি মেকিংয়ের ওই জায়গায় ডিসিশন মেকিংয়ে আমাদের আদিবাসী যুব সম্প্রদায়কে অন্তর্ভুক্ত করা হয় কিনা। যদি অন্তর্ভুক্ত করা হয়ে থাকে তাহলে আজকে ভিন্ন চেহারা আমরা দেখতে পেতাম, আর যদি না হয়ে থাকে তাহলে আজকে এই প্রশ্নটা উঠতো না যে কোথায় আমরা পলিসি মেকিং আছি। তো এর আগে আমরা সেশনে শুনলাম, যেটা কিছুক্ষণ আগে নাসরিন ম্যাডাম মনে হয় বলছিলেন, যে রিমেইনিং এডুকেশন ফর নেক্সট জেনারেশন এনভায়রনমেন্টাল লিডার্স, সেই জায়গায় তারা অনেক কিছু বলেছেন। তো আমার মনে হয় পলিসি মেকিংয়ে আমাদের আদিবাসীদের সিদ্ধান্ত গ্রহণ প্রক্রিয়ায় তাদের প্রতিনিধিত্ব থাকতে হবে আদিবাসী যুব সম্প্রদায়ের, যারা আদিবাসীদের বন রক্ষার নিয়ে চিন্তা করেন। এরকম অনেক আমাদের ইয়ুথ আছেন, গোষ্ঠী আছেন, যেমন এই দাদাকে আমি আজকে এখানে পেলাম। তাদের কথা কি এই পলিসি মেকিংয়ে অন্তর্ভুক্ত করা হয় কিনা। সেই সাথে আমি আরো একটা তাদের জন্য সেই বলার স্পেসটুকু রাখা হয় কিনা, আমাদের আদিবাসী যুব সম্প্রদায়কে সেইখানে জায়গা করে দেওয়া হয় কিনা। তো আপনারা যারা তরুণ সম্প্রদায় আছেন, আমি মনে করি আপনাদের মন অনেক বড়, অনেক উদার এবং ভবিষ্যতে একটা সুন্দর বাংলাদেশ গড়ে উঠবে যদি আপনারা আমাদের এই যুব সম্প্রদায়ের জন্য কাজ করেন, আদিবাসীদের জন্য কাজ করেন। আপনারা দেখবেন যে বন যেখানে, আদিবাসী সেখানে, আদিবাসী যেখানে, বন সেখানে। আপনারা ঢাকা শহরে বন খুঁজে পাবেন না, বন খুঁজে পাবেন সাজেকে, বান্দরবানে। কিন্তু সাজেকে কি এখন বন আছে? বান্দরবানে কি এখনো বন আছে? নাকি সেখানে অনেক ধরনের বিনোদন কেন্দ্র গড়ে উঠেছে? আপনাদের প্রশ্ন রাখতে হবে যে বিনোদন কেন্দ্রগুলো কাদের দ্বারা গড়ে উঠেছে। বিনোদন কেন্দ্রগুলো যদি গড়ে ওঠে সেখানে কমিউনিটি মানুষের অন্তর্ভুক্ত আছে কিনা, সেই কমিউনিটি মানুষগুলো জানে কিনা। এবং আপনারা যারা ঘুরতে যান সেখানে আপনাদের নিজেদেরকেও প্রশ্ন রাখতে হবে যে আমি যখন ঘুরতে যাই আমি তাদের পরিবেশটাকে দূষণ করে আসছি কিনা, প্লাস্টিক ফেলে আসছি কিনা, বিস্কুটের প্যাকেট ফেলে আসছি কিনা, চিপসের প্যাকেট ফেলে আসছি কিনা। আমি মনে করি নিজে যদি চেঞ্জ হয়, পরিবর্তন হয়, তাহলে সবাই মিলে আমরা এই পরিবেশটাকে আরো সুন্দর রাখতে পারবো। ধন্যবাদ।
I'm just going to add like few things in terms of indigenous people's participation in policy making. When it comes to that, I think awareness is key because there are so many people who really wants to be part of it, but there is lack of awareness and even knowledge or education. Inherently good we want to be, but we don't know where to start. We don't know where to go. So this lack of awareness and also this lack of knowledge access and also amplification, we really need to amplify, be it the little things that you're doing in contribution to the policy making. We really need to amplify even at the grassroots level, even in the national level, even in the international level. So these three keys are very important, and that's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that was really brilliant answers from all the panelists. But just to summarize what Falguni Tripura ma'am said, she said that, indigenous people's way of life is really related with nature because they're the ones who are adapting all the sustainable ways of lifestyle. But at the same time, they're the ones who are residing inside the forest, managing the forest. And he also said that, in Bandarbon, which is like the southeastern part of Bangladesh, and that's like Chittagong Hill Tracts. She said that even though tourism business are growing there and a lot of resorts are being built there, but I think there is lack of awareness when it comes to protecting those vital ecosystem that is a major carbon sequestration platform. And she said that there is lack of platforms for indigenous people itself in Bangladesh, so the youth are definitely lacking behind because there is also no platform where indigenous people's rights are promoted. So we have a lot of work to do when it comes to enhancing the leadership role of indigenous youth itself, but also indigenous people. And thank you so much, Zenorine and Toching. So if I move on to the next questions, if I move on to you, Zenorine, I would like to ask that, since you work with a lot of indigenous farmers of Northeast India, and your main aim is to eradicate poverty, by increasing income of the farmers. So how are you doing it, and what are some of the ways that you're engaging the farmers? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Before I share this, I would like to tell a story, a spark rather, like how I started this organization. I was in Delhi, and I think the previous speaker has also told so much pollution about Delhi, and I particularly do not like Delhi. So I was there, I was working there, and then I remember the last straw or the last hurrah of mine in Delhi that I bought chicken and I ate, and it was so tasteless. It was like dead meat. And after that, I went home for vacation. I come from a beautiful a place called Ukhrul in Manipur. It's a beautiful district. So I went home. And my mom made this amazing, delicious free range chicken. And I cried because it was so yummy. And I was thinking, how come this chicken is so tasty? That's when I realized the microclimate of that region, the indigenous produce, everything that makes it so tasty. That's when I realized and take a good courage in my life to quit the job, whatever I was doing, and to start my own organization because I really wanted to bring about that indigenous superfood, like yummy, yummy things, super delicious things to the market. So I did reverse engineering to my thought, to my mindset in such a way that okay, we're going to create this product. So how are we going to marry indigenous farmers and produce to make this excellent product? That's when I went back to create a farming force. That's when I convinced a lot of farmers from the traditional farming to start farming spices, perilla seeds, fruits, nuts, and exceptionally happy people were. And even me, I was super content. And then we created a product like functional chocolates where we make with perilla and cacao, and it's super delicious. That's where we started hitting the market, and we're looking forward to create more to hit the market so that when we sell perilla seeds just for the farmers, they might be earning the normal market value. But if we make it into products like exceptional excellent products which is loved by everyone, then the impact goes like 10x. And that's when I realized that we have to change the narrative, even in policies, even in the challenges that exist. The system is so rigid, even the market is so rigid. But until unless we innovate, until unless we change the narrative that hello, indigenous superfoods are like amazing, we have the biggest deal here, and we create something and show to the market. And that's when you turn the tables around. That's when you start controlling the narrative. And I think that has somehow changed the narrative in such a way that my place is, it's a lot of conflict. Like I was also born in conflict, I was also born in poverty, but I came out of it, and I'm a success story, I feel so. And then the place that we are in, so much of conflict, like 5 years ago people couldn't even imagine doing business there. Now people know Ukhrul as a land of tasty produce. Whatever comes from Ukhrul is so yummy, it's so tasty. So that's the kind of narrative we have to negotiate. And it's one of the best content way to imagine Hillwild, my organization, working together with Farming Force. And I think we will also achieve like creator heights with this kind of conviction. And in this kind of change maker journey, of course, it's a very lonely journey. You hit different doors and nobody opens, and it's quite very lonely. But then what keeps me going is you know every farmer, when a particular farmer or when even a single farmer is empowered, that's when we realize, okay, today is one farmer, tomorrow it can be 10 farmers, next time it could be 10,000 farmers. And that's how you build communities, and that's what keeps me going. So I think I hope I have encompassed like a lot of the questions you asked me.
Thank you so much, Zenarine. That's so inspiring. And, the way you started, like you started with one farmer and then now it's 10,000 farmers. And then in future, the number will increase. And what's best is, you're doing sustainable agriculture, you're getting that market access, but you're also involving the people or the community who are left behind the farthest. Now, if I move to Toching Marma again, and I would like to ask you that since you're the co-founder of Community Resource Development Center, so, how are you working or engaging youth to tackle environmental challenges? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Before that, can I say something about the Chittagong Hill Tracts? Okay, so that the audience know about this. So Chittagong Hill Tracts consists of 3 districts: Rangamati, Khagrachuri, and Bandurban. And there are 11, some people say 11, some people say 12, but 12, I think 12 indigenous communities resides there. They have their own languages, their own culture, and their main livelihood is jhum cultivation. Jhum cultivation used to be the main livelihood, but it's keep changing now because land resources is very limited, as you know. People, the population in Chittagong Hill Tracts is increasing because of, from flat land, people are moving there and residing there because of this. Land resources it's the same, but people has increased. Because of that, Jum cultivation has a negative impact now. People there are now doing fruit orchard, and they're doing different kind of jobs now, switching from Jum cultivation. There are indigenous people's livelihood is based on mainly nature-based livelihood, we can say that. And because of the climate change, environmental resources has degraded, land fertility has decreased, and water resources, as you know, Chirang Hill Tracts is hilly area, and because of that, water is a big challenge to get water for irrigation, to get water for drinking purposes. And because of this, you know, the livelihood is now in danger. The traditional livelihood of indigenous people is in danger now. The crops that they used to produce in by doing Jum cultivation has decreased a lot, and because of that, the forest has also decreased. So there are a lot of challenges. I can keep talk about it, but we have time constraints. So let me answer to your question about the how we're engaging youths. The last project we did was it was called Kabalung. Kabalung is a Marma word. It means the earth. The project was the purpose of the project was creating climate learning hub, and the project was funded by catalytic grant. That was ECAD is one of the partner organizations to start the initiative of catalytic grant. So in that project, we involved youths and students from our communities, and also parents. Parents were also included in our project. So what we did was we tried to facilitate to understand climate change and climate change related issues that they're facing. They're already facing, they know about it, but they may not know why it's happening. So we just try to connect with their traditional knowledge to the scientific knowledge. And we had a lot of sessions with the students. And we also had field activities, like we gave the students to do a survey in their communities. When the students went back to their village in holidays, they did a survey. They talked with their parents, with their grandmothers, grandfathers, to understand more about the changing climate or the environment. So this is how we are trying to engage the indigenous youths, because we believe that I heard talking in even previous sessions that they took initiatives themselves, but in Chirong Hill Tracts, because of the political situations and the region, the unique type of region it is, it's very difficult to directly act. Like stone lifting is happening there. Stone lifting, deforestation is continuously happening, but we directly cannot act against those activities because of the political situation. So what we're trying to do is we indirectly trying to have an impact in the area so that this type of activities decreases. Like if we aware the youths and the students who are still kids, they will be more aware about the challenges and in future what kind of challenges they're going to face. I think this is the way we're trying to spread the knowledge of climate change, what we know. So we're also, trying to connect the university students in our work. They come to our region to volunteer, and we have other plans too. So I think that's all for now. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Since we're running out of time, so I would just like to ask my last question to all three of you, and it would be same for all of you. So what would be few recommendations that you would give to increase youth's participation in protecting the nature, but also engaging with policymakers? Thank you.
I think we should strive to build a very conclusive ecosystem. Like a lot of actors can play in terms of different ways. One can be a storyteller, one can be an entrepreneur, policymaker, or even at the grassroots. But we need to join hands in such a way that we build this ecosystem. And like I mentioned in my previous thing, we also need to start changing the narrative. The fight for all these policies and climate change cannot be with the same narrative again and again. We have to start changing the narrative from our end so that we can make the ecosystem viable and also break through the rigid systems.
Thank you for the question. So I think that youths should be, I mean, especially if I talk about Tirang Hill Tracks, the youths of the Tirang Hill Tracks are very interested to work on the climate change issues, but the problem they're facing is that financial crisis, and they have lack of opportunities to act on these things. And as the previous session talked about the reimagining education system, and our education system is not contextualized. So if it was, contextualized, I think indigenous youths could have been more active on solving the issues that we're having there. Our geographic location is very different. The livelihood is very different. If the education system was supporting the, livelihood of our indigenous people, then I think indigenous youths could have been more involved in the process of policy making, in the process of, acting and solving the issues. And indigenous youths have, now that it was very difficult for indigenous people to get access to education, but now indigenous people are also aware about these things. They're in studying in different universities, and they know about the environmental and climate change crisis, the livelihood crisis that we have. But the problem is that I already talked, for economy, they have to support their family. So if they even think about doing some entrepreneurial work, they cannot do it because of this. But if organizations like international or national organizations, or it can be government, if they could, take initiatives like involving indigenous youths, solving the crisis, solving the challenges that they have in the region, like step by step, giving them first maybe to find out the problems, then maybe coming up with a small project, then following up, step by step. If we can do this, only then I think they will be more involved. But right now, what they're doing is they're doing just a small project. They're attending different sessions, seminars like me. But the problem is, if we want to do a sustainable project, it has to be very well planned. It involves support from different organizations, from government, and also it involves money throughout the process. So if we can ensure that, only then I think the problems can be solved. Thank you.
থ্যাংক ইউ ফর কোয়েশ্চেন্স। আপনারা হয়তো জানেন যে আমি এর আগেও বলেছি যে আদিবাসীরা যেখানে থাকে বন সেখানে থাকে, হ্যাঁ? তো রেকমেন্ডেশনের জায়গায় যদি কথা বলতে চাই, রেকমেন্ডেশনে যাওয়ার আগে আমি দুটো কথা বলবো যে আপনারা দাদার কাছ থেকে পার্বত্য চট্টগ্রামের কিছুটা উনি তুলে ধরেছেন। আমি জাস্ট খাসি সম্প্রদায়ের কথা বলছি, সিলেট অঞ্চলে থাকে যারা, যে আমরা কিভাবে আদিবাসীদের দেখি, তাদের প্রতি আমাদের দৃষ্টিভঙ্গি পাল্টাতে হবে। তো খাসি সম্প্রদায়েরা জীবন ধারণ করে পান চাষের উপরে। তো গবেষণায় দেখা গেছে যে এই পান চাষ পদ্ধতিটা তারা যেভাবে ট্র্যাডিশনাল উপায়ে এবং যে নলেজ নিয়ে তারা এই পান চাষ করে, এটা অন্যরা পারে না। তো এই পান চাষ পদ্ধতি কিংবা আদিবাসীদের সাথে বনের যে সম্পৃক্ততা, এটা নিয়ে যদি পাঠ্য বইয়ে অন্তর্ভুক্ত করা যায়, এটা আপনারা ভেবে দেখতে পারেন। আর গত বছর দৃষ্টিভঙ্গি পাল্টানোর ব্যাপারে আমি বলছি এই কারণে যে গত বছর রাজশাহীর দিনাজপুর এইদিকে দুজন কৃষক মারা গেছেন। যারা মারা গেছেন তারা সাঁওতাল সম্প্রদায়ের। এখন আপনাকে দেখতে হবে যে এই দুজন কৃষক কেন মারা গেল, পানি না পেয়ে মারা গেল, হ্যাঁ? কিন্তু তারা কেন পানি পায়নি? কারণ যে কর্মকর্তা থাকে সেই আদিবাসীদের প্রতি তাদের দৃষ্টিভঙ্গি নিরপেক্ষ ছিল না। তো এই জায়গাগুলো থেকে আমাদের কাজ করতে হবে। আমি জানি আপনারা তরুণ, আপনারাই পারবেন এই পরিবর্তনগুলো ঘটাতে। তো যদি আমরা এই COP27টা দেখি, সেখানে লস অ্যান্ড ড্যামেজ নিয়ে অনেক কথা বলা হয়েছে, এবং আপনি যদি দেখেন যে উপকূলীয় অঞ্চলে যারা থাকে আদিবাসীরা, মোটামুটি বাংলাদেশের যে আদিবাসীরা রয়েছে তারা সবাই কিন্তু এই ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ দ্বারা আদিবাসীরা যে ধরনের ভূমি থেকে উচ্ছেদের শিকার হয়, আপনারা রিসেন্টলি বান্দরবানের ম্রোর ঘটনা জানেন, যেখানে 200-300 পরিবার পর্যটনের নামে তারা উচ্ছেদের শিকার হয়েছে, এবং তারা সেখান থেকে উচ্ছেদ করতে না পেরে তারা যে ছড়া মানে পানির যে ঝর্ণা দ্বারা আছে ওখান থেকে যে পানি সংগ্রহ করে, সেই পানি খেয়ে তারা যেন মৃত্যুবরণ করে, সেই পানিতে বিষ ছিটিয়ে দেওয়া হয়েছে, হ্যাঁ? তো আচ্ছা, এখন যদি এই 200-300 পরিবারের মানুষ যদি এই বিষের দ্বারা আক্রান্ত হয়ে মারা যায়, তাহলে COP27 যে লস অ্যান্ড ড্যামেজের কথা প্রাসঙ্গিকভাবে চলে আসছে, সেখানে কি আদিবাসীরা অন্তর্ভুক্ত হবে? তারা কি পাবে? এই বিষয়গুলো আমাদেরকে ভাবতে হবে। এবং যে ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ নিয়ে যে সংবেদনশীলতা তৈরি করতে হবে, সচেতনতা তৈরি করতে হবে। আমি মনে করি এই ধরনের ওয়ার্কশপ শুধু ঢাকা কেন্দ্রিক না থেকে এই জাতীয় সেমিনার কিংবা ওয়ার্কশপ কিংবা যে প্রোগ্রামগুলো হাতে নেওয়া হয় সেটা আঞ্চলিক কেন্দ্রিক হওয়া উচিত, এবং ইন্ডিজিনাস কমিউনিটিকে এখানে ইনভলভ করতে হবে। আপনি যদি বনের ভিতরে প্রবেশ করতে না চান, সেই বনকে প্রাকৃতিকভাবে তারা কিন্তু সেই জ্ঞান রাখে, আমরা কিন্তু সেই জ্ঞান, তাদের জ্ঞান সম্পর্কে জানি না, কিন্তু ওই বনের কখন বৃষ্টি হবে কখন রোদ হবে তারা কিন্তু জানে, সেই ক্ষেত্রে কমিউনিটিকে ইনভলভ করতে হবে। এবং সর্বশেষ যে রেকমেন্ডেশন সেটা হচ্ছে সিদ্ধান্ত গ্রহণ প্রক্রিয়ায় আদিবাসী তরুণ নেতৃত্বকে প্রাধান্য দিতে হবে, তাদের কথা আমাদেরকে শুনতে হবে। এবং আপনারা জানেন তরুণরা খুব নতুন নতুন আইডিয়া নিয়ে আসে, তো যার কারণে হচ্ছে তাদের কথা আমাদেরকে শুনতে হবে। এবং আমাদের যে জেনারেশন গ্যাপ একটা কথা রয়েছে, এই গ্যাপটাকে কিভাবে কমানো যায় সেদিকেও আমাদের দৃষ্টি দিতে হবে। ধন্যবাদ।
Dhunobad. Thank you so much to all the panelists. It was a brilliant feedback session. If I just summarize what Falguni Tripura ma'am said, she said that, even though we know that indigenous communities' lives are intertwined with the natural habitat and the ecosystem, and they're the ones who have the traditional and indigenous knowledge to really protect them, but they're not always taken into consideration. So it's really prime time that we incorporate their ideas, their traditional knowledge, their indigenous knowledge in our education system to better manage the ecosystem and the forest. But at the same time, she also mentioned that even though Loss and Damage Fund was created, in COP27, but the indigenous communities all around the world are struggling to get the basic access to any rights, like the basic access to human rights. So, how can we better tackle the systemic challenges, but at the same time also make sure that the fund is better curated to tackle the environmental challenges? One of the things she also mentioned is that the youth's participation in decision making is vital, but there is a huge challenge in bridging that gap between urban cities and peri-urban and also rural areas. So more of these conferences needs to take place at very remote regions where people who are left behind the farthest, they can also attend, and we can create space for them. So if I summarize our talk, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the brilliant answers that you gave, and for all the inspiring work that you're doing to work together for the best for humanity, but also best for the nature. And one of the things that we really got out of Zenarine was that we really need to change our narratives and the way we think. And we need to better collaborate between the stakeholders, let it be academicians, researchers, farmers, fishermen, or whoever, but who are working towards protecting the nature. But at the same time, we also need to think about the challenges, the context specific challenges that lies in a country or in a region, because one of the way we need to work is follow a top down approach. When we work with the local community, the local government, the local people, and then kind of move away to the central government, so that the decisions are really driven by the locality. And one of the things that Abu Tojing Marma said is that we really need to also focus on doing the capacity building of the indigenous people and making sure that there is enough employment opportunities, but at the same time, education system which is context specific. So thank you so much for all of your patience. This was the last session, so thank you for listening to us, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
So, thank you, esteemed panelists, for sharing your precious ideas, valuable responses, and unique experiences with all of us. So now I'd like to thank all of you for your time, patience, and presence here today. Before wrapping up today's event of the international conference, I'd like to thank all the team members of Bali Para Foundation, all the personnel from Activision, my dear colleagues from the Center for Bay of Bengal Studies, CBOBS, all of my esteemed colleagues from our academic and administrative units at IUB, for your mighty support throughout this international conference. I'd also like to thank our friends from the media and our beloved students for participating in this conference throughout your busy schedule. I'd like